experiences, friends that I grew up with from South Philly.
Who's she? This is Mrs. Owens, Mr. Curry's supervisor.
What the fuck? And then by yelling, just things started happening, and walking the way we walked in South Philly was bad.
Now, where were we?
I looked for this little man that I could have squashed him.
You're watching your favorite TV show, laughing along with the characters you've grown to love over 11 amazing seasons. Then suddenly, without any warning, it's gone forever. No goodbye episode. No chance for the characters to say farewell. Just nothing. This is exactly what happened to one of the most beloved sitcoms in television history, The Jeffersons. But what really caused this groundbreaking show to disappear from our screens? Was there really one infamous scene that changed everything, or was something much bigger happening behind the scenes? Today, we're going to dig deep into the real story behind The Jeffersons' shocking cancellation. We'll uncover the truth about the controversies, the conflicts, and the cultural impact that made this show both revolutionary and controversial. Get ready for a story that's more dramatic than any episode the show ever aired. Let me take you back to a time when television was very different from what we know today. In the 1970s, most TV shows featured white families living perfect lives in perfect homes. Black characters, when they appeared at all, were usually shown as poor, struggling, or just there to make white characters look good. But one man was about to change all of that forever. Norman Lear was already making waves with his hit show, All in the Family, which dared to talk about real issues that other shows were too scared to touch. The main character, Archie Bunker, was a working-class white man who said things that made audiences both laugh and think. But Lear knew he could do more. He wanted to create something that had never been seen on television before. The spark for the Jeffersons came from an unexpected source. 3 members of the Black Panther Party approached Norman Lear with a complaint. They told him that black people on TV were always shown as poor and helpless. They challenged him to create a show about a black family that was successful, proud, and doing well in life. This conversation planted a seed in Lear's mind that would grow into something incredible. But before the Jeffersons could exist, the characters had to be introduced somewhere else first. Louise Jefferson, played by the talented Isabel Sanford, first appeared on All in the Family on March 2, 1971. She moved into the neighborhood next to Archie and Edith Bunker with her son Lionel and her husband George. This was television history in the making, even though nobody knew it at the time. Here's where things get interesting. Norman Lear had actually created the character of George Jefferson specifically for actor Sherman Hemsley. But when it came time to introduce George on the show, Hemsley was busy performing in a Broadway play. Instead of waiting or finding someone else, Lear did something creative. He invented George's younger brother Henry, played by Mel Stewart, to fill the role temporarily. When Hemsley finally became available, George Jefferson made his grand entrance, and television would never be the same. The chemistry between Sherman Hemsley and Isabel Sanford was magical, even though their real-life relationship started off rocky. When Sanford first learned that Hemsley would play her on-screen husband, she was actually disappointed. She thought he was too loud and unattractive to be believable as her spouse. Meanwhile, Hemsley thought Sanford seemed arrogant and difficult to work with. But sometimes the best partnerships come from unexpected places. As their characters developed on All in the Family, something beautiful happened. The cast and crew began calling Isabel Sanford the Queen because of her natural elegance and grace. In return, she nicknamed Sherman Hemsley Neck because of his thin frame. These playful nicknames became part of their on-set chemistry, and what started as mutual dislike grew into a professional partnership that would define both of their careers. By 1975, the Jefferson family had become so popular on All in the Family that Norman Lear decided they deserved their own show. On January 11, 1975, audiences watched Edith Bunker say goodbye to Louise Jefferson as the family prepared to move up in the world. The very next week, The Jeffersons premiered, showing the family's new life in a fancy Manhattan apartment. The show's premise was simple but revolutionary. George Jefferson had used money from a lawsuit to open a dry cleaning business. By the time the show started, he owned 5 successful dry cleaning stores in New York City. The Jeffersons had literally moved on up, from a working-class neighborhood in Queens to a deluxe apartment in the sky. The theme song wasn't just catchy, it was a declaration of black success and pride. But The Jeffersons wasn't just about showing a successful black family. It was about exploring what happens when people from different backgrounds live, work, and love together. The show featured television's first interracial married couple, Tom and Helen Willis, played by Franklin Cover and Roxy Roker. This was incredibly controversial at the time, and both actors received hate mail for their roles. Roxy Roker's casting story is particularly interesting. When the casting directors questioned whether audiences would believe her character was married to a white man, she showed them a picture of her real-life white husband, Cy Kravitz. What many people don't know is that Roxy often brought her young son to the set. That little boy would grow up to become rock star Lenny Kravitz. The show also featured an amazing supporting cast that brought the Jeffersons world to life. Mara Gibbs played Florence, the wisecracking housekeeper who wasn't afraid to tease George about his height and baldness. Paul Benedict was Harry Bentley, the British neighbor who told long, boring stories that George would interrupt by slamming doors. These characters weren't just there for laughs. They represented the diverse community that the Jeffersons called home. As the show grew in popularity, it began tackling issues that other sitcoms wouldn't touch. They talked about racism, class differences, and what it meant to be successful in America. The show used humor to explore serious topics, making audiences laugh while also making them think. This was dangerous territory for television in the 1970s and 1980s. The success of The Jeffersons was incredible. In its first season, the show ranked number 4 in the ratings, just behind its parent show, All in the Family, which was number 1. Over its 11-season run, The Jeffersons consistently ranked in the top 10, and by the 1981 to 1982 season, it had climbed to number 3, behind only Dallas and 60 Minutes. The show's impact went far beyond ratings. In 1981, Isabel Sanford made history by becoming the first African-American actress to win an Emmy for Best Actress in a comedy series. She had been nominated 7 years in a row, and when she finally won, it was a groundbreaking moment for representation in television. Mara Gibbs was also nominated for Best Supporting Actress every year from 1981 to 1985, showing that the show's talent was being recognized at the highest levels. But success came with challenges. The show bounced around 15 different time slots during its 10-year run, making it hard for fans to keep track of when it was on. Despite this constant movement, loyal viewers kept tuning in, proving just how much the show meant to people. Behind the scenes, there were also creative tensions that would eventually contribute to the show's problems. Sherman Hemsley, who came from a strong theatrical background, felt that his character should evolve beyond using offensive language. When his requests to stop using racial slurs in the script were ignored, Hemsley began what could be called passive resistance. He would intentionally flub his lines or speak them so quietly that the microphones couldn't pick them up clearly. This act of quiet rebellion actually worked. The writers eventually stopped using racial slurs in the script, marking an important shift in how the show portrayed racial issues. But this also created tension between the actors and the production team that would simmer throughout the show's later seasons. There were also changes in the cast that affected the show's dynamics. Mike Evans, who originally played Lionel Jefferson, left after the first season and was replaced by Damon Evans, no relation. Mike Evans returned briefly in the 4th season but left again, and his character was eventually written out of the show entirely along with his wife Jenny. These character departures changed the family dynamic that had been central to the show's appeal. Perhaps the biggest controversy surrounding the Jeffersons involved accusations of stolen ideas. Eric Monty, who had worked on Good Times and created Cooley High, accused Norman Lear of stealing his concepts for George and Louise Jefferson without giving him credit. Monty claimed that Lear was racist and had used his ideas unfairly. He even took legal action in 1977, but after years of court battles and being blacklisted in the industry, Monty's life spiraled into homelessness and addiction. Whether these accusations were true or not, they created a cloud of controversy around the show that added to the behind-the-scenes tensions. The entertainment industry can be brutal, and when creative disputes turn into legal battles, everyone involved usually suffers. As The Jeffersons moved into its later seasons, the ratings began to decline. By the show's final season, it was no longer in the top 30 shows on television. The television landscape was changing, with new types of shows capturing audiences' attention. Cable television was growing, and viewers had more choices than ever before. But even with declining ratings, nobody expected what happened next. On July 2, 1985, The Jeffersons aired what would become its final episode, titled Red Robins. But here's the shocking part: Nobody knew it was the final episode. There was no special goodbye, no chance for the characters to have closure, no opportunity for the cast to say farewell to their fans. The cancellation came without warning. Sherman Hemsley found out that the show had been cancelled by reading about it in a newspaper. Isabel Sanford learned the news from a cousin who had seen it in a tabloid. The rest of the cast found out from entertainment news shows. After 11 seasons and 253 episodes, one of television's most groundbreaking shows simply disappeared. The cast felt betrayed and disrespected by how the cancellation was handled. They had given years of their lives to creating these beloved characters, and they deserved better than finding out about the end of their show from strangers. Isabel Sanford later called it a disrespectful way to end the show, and her anger was shared by the entire cast. So what really caused the Jeffersons to end? Was there one infamous scene that changed everything? The truth is more complicated than that. While there's no evidence of a single scene that caused the cancellation, the show faced multiple challenges that combined to create the perfect storm. The ratings decline was certainly a factor. Television executives are always looking at numbers, and when a show stops bringing in viewers, it becomes expendable. The constant time slot changes didn't help, as they made it harder for loyal fans to find the show. The behind-the-scenes tensions also played a role. When actors and writers are in conflict, it affects the quality of the show and makes it harder to produce. Sherman Hemsley's resistance to certain types of content, while principled, may have made the production process more difficult. The changing television landscape was another important factor. By the mid-1980s, audiences were looking for different types of entertainment. The socially conscious sitcom that the Jeffersons represented was giving way to more escapist programming. There may have also been network politics involved that we'll never fully understand. Television executives make decisions based on many factors beyond just ratings and production costs. Sometimes shows get canceled because they don't fit with a network's new direction or because they're seen as old-fashioned. The legacy of the Jeffersons extends far beyond its shocking cancellation. The show broke new ground in representing successful black families on television. It showed that African American characters could be complex, flawed, successful, and funny without being stereotypes. It tackled serious social issues while still being entertaining. The show's influence can be seen in many later programs that featured diverse casts and weren't afraid to address social issues. Shows like The Cosby Show, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and Blackish all owe something to the path that the Jeffersons helped create. Even the theme song, Movin' On Up, became a cultural touchstone that people still sing today. Written by Janet Du Bois and Jeff Barry, the song perfectly captured the spirit of the show and the dreams of countless families who wanted to move up in the world. The impact of the Jeffersons was recognized in 2019 when ABC aired a special live episode featuring the original show alongside All in the Family. Stars like Jamie Foxx, Wanda Sykes, and Woody Harrelson took on the classic roles, and Mara Gibbs returned to reprise her role as Florence. This tribute showed that the show's influence was still strong more than 30 years after its cancellation. The story of the Jeffersons is ultimately a story about courage, creativity, and the power of television to change minds and open hearts. Norman Lear and his cast took risks to create something that had never been seen before. They faced controversy, criticism, and challenges, but they persisted in telling stories that mattered. The show proved that audiences were hungry for diverse characters and stories that reflected the real world. It showed that comedy could be both funny and meaningful, that entertainment could also be education, and that television could be a force for social change. While the cancellation of the Jeffersons was handled poorly and came as a shock to everyone involved, the show's impact cannot be diminished by its ending. The Jefferson family moved on up, and they took television with them. They opened doors that can never be closed and changed the medium forever. The lesson of the Jeffersons is that groundbreaking art often comes with a price. When you dare to be different, when you challenge the status quo, when you tell stories that some people don't want to hear, you face resistance. But if you persist, if you stay true to your vision, you can create something that lasts long after the cameras stop rolling. So while we may never know if there was one specific scene or moment that sealed the Jeffersons' fate, we do know that the show's willingness to push boundaries and tackle controversial topics ultimately contributed both to its success and to the tensions that may have led to its end. Sometimes being ahead of your time means paying a price, but it also means leaving a legacy that future generations will remember and appreciate. The Jeffersons moved on up, and they took all of us with them. Their story reminds us that progress is never easy, but it's always worth fighting for. Even when the show ended without warning, without closure, without the respect it deserved, the impact remained. The Jefferson family had already won the most important victory of all. They had changed television forever. If this story of courage, controversy, and cultural change has moved you, don't forget to hit that like button and share this video with your friends. The story of the Jeffersons is one that deserves to be remembered and retold. Subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into the hidden stories behind your favorite shows. What other classic TV mysteries would you like us to explore? Let us know in the comments below, and remember, we're all just moving on up together, one story at a time.